we go. Where do you want to go?
You go. And I'm going to go.
Where should I go?
I don't know. Are we going yet? Is it happening?
I think I pushed it. I think we're live. Hello and welcome to the Enlightened Couch Potato Show. My name is Nicholas Rave and this is
Adrianne Gunn. We're so excited that you're here because if you weren't here, we would probably still be here, but now you are.
Yeah, that's pretty much how this works. This podcast really is an excuse, just like my other podcast, for me to just do something that I want to do anyway, and this is a good excuse to like make sure that you and I connect every week or so and do this weird thing that we do, which is taking movies and TV way too seriously.
We were doing this already. We were doing this before it was a show. We would occasionally attempt to be doing work together or, you know, something productive. And then we'd end up talking for an hour or so about 100%. Movies. And so I have been living a life. We did this last week. We were here last week, right?
Yes, we did. Yeah. And we talked about the Lion movie.
It was so good.
Yeah.
I have definitely watched things in the last week or so.
Me too.
I'm a little nervous for this week. So I've been trying to let myself be a little like calm and take it easy. Just because energetically that's where I felt. And
what are you nervous about?
So at the end of this week, I need to stop taking the amazing amino pills that I take to balance my brain and such, because I'm doing tests. I'm doing urine tests for neurotransmitters and hormones and things like that. And you're supposed to not have those things in your system. And at the same time, I also have a new quit smoking client. I think the good news about the potential that my brain will be functioning slower is that this person happens to be from Texas, and I am working really hard to slow down my speech. So if my brain is like super slow by the time I have to work with them,
that's perfect.
And I'm not dumbing it down. I'm just like slowing it.
Yeah.
Because regionalism.
Take a few tranquilizers. This will be the rough equivalent. Or having a couple drinks.
Yeah. Well, and I'm also recognizing like part of the reason why I'm doing the tests, they're going to test my adrenal system and my thyroid and all these other things in different ways, because I have had trouble calming the F down for the past year. And so I've been purposely attempting to just chill and relax and be less distracted and really drive into like the stuff I'm watching, the food I'm eating and chewing. It's just been sort of how can I be more slowly present, mindful in my world? And gosh, I also started reading the book, The Mood Cure, which is about nutrition and amino acid therapies to help with a bunch of different moods and brain conditions and serotonin and dopamine and all that kind of thing. And it's freaking fascinating and amazing book. I love it. I think everyone should read it. So go ahead.
All right.
The Mood Cure. The idea that just a lot of us, I mean, the cool thing, I've been taking aminos for a very long time, and they really are almost instantaneously effective. I think you've talked to me in the past about 5-HTP. That's on their list of like good stuff for serotonin. And
I take 5-HTP every day. Yeah.
I wish more people knew about this. I mean, the theory in this book is the idea that you can do a therapy with the immunotherapies and the supplements that they talk to you about whatever your symptoms are. And you can just cure your mood issues in 3 to 12 months. I think I have been taking them longer for different reasons, but just that a lot of people think that their situation is permanent and it's physiologically could be supported differently. Just knocks myself. So I'm nervous because it's been a very long time since I've not taken any of them. This includes like my melatonin to go to sleep at night and all these other things. So I am very curious who I'm going to be at the top of next week when I'm doing the peeing. And
I feel that way about caffeine every time I take a break from it, which I do consistently. Like there's a feeling that I have with caffeine where I'm like, I'm going to use some caffeine and it's really helpful and I really like it. And then your body builds up a tolerance to it. And then it gets to this point where I'm like, okay, I need to take a break from this. And I've never taken that. Well, I've always felt like that means I should quit forever. But I've recently let that go, where now I'm like, no, I actually think maybe it's okay to have cycles like this. Yeah. And I always feel like I don't know who I'm going to be without it. Like I'm going to let it go and I'm going to be, and it's like never as bad as I think it is. So,
yeah. Well, I recently accidentally ran out of magnesium and then forgot, and then found myself like waking up with a clenched jaw, and it massively affected my sleeping. And I forgot that I live a couple blocks away from a natural food store, and I like, instead of going without it for 3 weeks, I could have just walked 2 fucking blocks away and got it and just sort of solved that issue. So going for 48 hours or so, because I'm doing 2 different tests, 2 different days. So it might be 72. It might be 72 hours of interestingness, and will serve me. It'll help me understand what my body's going through and how to support it in the future. So it's good. But yeah, fascinating. And I have to time it perfectly with a specific day on my cycle. I don't know.
Wow.
That's my world.
Well, so you said that you've been watching things and trying to drop into them really deeply. And I think I got the sense that even your watching has been part of trying to calm down.
Yeah.
So tell me more about that. What have you been watching?
I'm going to talk about something that I don't know if anybody's interested in. I'm going to do a weird thing. So there's this show.
Good television.
It's an Apple TV show called Losing Alice. Fascinating premise. Losing Alice is, I think it's filmed in Israel because it's subtitles. And it's about a female director who chose to have kids. She's married to a famous actor, and she meets this film student on a train. The film student's on the train, and the film student's like, oh my God, I've idolized this director's work. Aunt Alice, who's the lead character, and I think it's Sophie, has idolized this director's work. And she's like, oh my God, I've written a play. Will you read it? Da, da, da. So she goes home, she reads the play. Her husband's read the play, and the movie that this film student wrote, and they're both like, this is amazing, and Alice wants to direct it and that sort of thing. So, but it's also a thriller, and it's kind of sexy, and it's a really slow burn, and then it's also in a different culture. The woman who plays Fisk's girlfriend in
Daredevil?
What is the Daredevil? Yeah. So she's the lead actress in this. I don't know if you'll remember her. She's the lead actress.
Is she Israeli? Is she speaking Hebrew?
I think so.
She must. I
think so. Yeah.
Wow.
So, gosh, it's fascinating. There are a lot of.
Did she have an accent in Daredevil? I don't remember.
I think she did.
Okay.
I do recall that she had some kind of accent.
Not that actors can't get rid of their accent, like that's part of your job, but I couldn't remember. Wow, that sounds awesome. Weird. Yeah.
So the thriller is that this is a very dark screenplay that they've decided to do, and it's dark and sexy, and it's like this. The story of the screenplay is that this young 2 girls are best friends, and one of them seduces the other's father. And then the other one kills herself. Like, it's a dark story. And so what happens when you have the dark element of the story show up in this marriage between these 2 different people? The pressure's there. And is it based on reality? We don't know. So that's what's pulling at it. And it's sexy. And as a director, she's gonna direct her husband in a sex scene, and like it's so slow. There's another show that I watched. It's an 8 episode TV show. There's another show similar called Gypsy, which is really a slow burn. Netflix put it on, and there's sexual tension between the 2 characters. And this young screenwriter is very challenging for me, healing wise. Dropping into this movie is a lot about dropping into the darker, more sadistic aspects of like my own sexuality, which may or may not have been like I may or may not have actually
You're doing a
expressed
really
them
good job selling this
in life. But it's an interesting thing to watch and drop into other people exploring the edges of the dynamics.
So is it a movie or a show?
It's a TV show. It's 8. I think it's 8 episodes. They're about 45-ish minutes long.
I can't help but think that you know when you read a book that is so clearly the author writing what they know. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is a story about a writer who's broke and lives in LA and talks about how important his writing is.
Yes.
I think this story feels like somebody in screenplay filmmaking world writing something that like plays with their own reality a little bit and is like, what if my reality as a screenwriter was more exciting than it is? And then that seems really creative and cool.
Yeah. Well, and playing around with the edges of like truth and possibility and shaking up boredom and just, it's like an edgy, dark, sexy, ugly story.
Did you watch The Americans?
Yes.
Yeah, it feels like it has a little bit of that vibe to it.
Kinda. It really is a slow burn. Some people are into that. I'm into that. I'm into a show that, you know, it actually reminds me a little bit more of, gosh, what was the thing that shoot. This is great TV. Me just trying to think of something. I keep saying like Carrie, that may or may not be her name. There's
give me something to work with.
I'm trying.
Give me a part of the plot.
God, it's a Showtime show, and
is it the one? Is it Mrs. Ratchet or no?
No, Ratchet is awesome, and it's a little bit slow burnish, but it's like more high fashion. I gotta type things
what
in.
You're talking about.
I know. I don't know what I'm talking about either. There's a show where there's this woman who is fighting terrorism. She's part of the division that fights terrorism. It's a Showtime show, and
Homeland?
It's dark.
No.
Homeland.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yes,
with Mandy Patinkin.
Mandy Patinkin and what's her name?
That's a slow burn. Claire Danes.
Thank you, Claire Danes.
I've never seen it. I just
thank you so much.
I'm just a little bit of a savant in that way.
It just was not in the file folders that I picked for what I thought I was going to talk about for today.
Got it.
So yeah, that thing.
Okay.
Her character is bipolar and likes to have casual sex, and then you've got terrorism and dark. Like the whole thing is very, very dark and edgy in ways that you wouldn't necessarily expect. Oh, we're just going to watch a Homeland Security thriller. Right. It's just going to be like a buddy cop thing. I was like, no. This is a psychological thriller.
But that's what makes it interesting. Is like it makes it feel like they're real people in these weird, and it makes you think about the real people in those real situations.
Yeah.
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 Do you want to go back and forth?
Sure, go for it.
So, okay. So I watched a movie that I'm going to throw out here that I think we should do. It's a little Bill Murray movie. I mentioned this to you called The Man Who Knew Too Little. That was super fun. We watched, we started watching, we gave up on Eureka. My wife and I could no longer continue to watch something for that long.
Yes.
So we started watching Deep Space Nine, which I have never actually sat down and watched. When I was a kid, I was always like, that's the boring Star Trek, because it's much more political, and I referred to it as soap opera-y. But I'm now totally digging it. So I'm really excited to add to this, because this is the Star Trek that I love. And it does pain me greatly at how much I hate the Star Trek that exists right now. But I'm loving this, and I'm watching a new show. I started from the beginning and I've never seen this. So I'm basically getting to watch something new and binge it as much as I want. We're going very slowly through it. So Faye and I started watching this. I'm not at all recommending this show. I'm saying this because there's a part of me that doesn't even want anyone to know that I watch this and enjoy it, but I'm going to do it anyway. So there's this show from Cartoon Network on Adult Swim called Mr. Pickles.
I know nothing about this.
It is maybe one of the most mean-spirited, dark, fucked up shows I've ever watched, and we can't stop watching it. It's so horrible and funny and awful, and please don't judge me or judge me all you want. I really love it. It's got like all this like satanic imagery that's put into it, and like this dog is basically the devil or some kind of demon, and he just like murders people randomly. But then occasionally he'll like do the like backmasking thing where he talks backwards, and he just barks all the rest of the time, but he can communicate with animals, and he'll go like and then the animals have to do what he says. The theme song is in like super heavy metal, and it's like Mr. Pickles, good boy.
Oh my God.
I freaking love it. I think it's amazing, and it's so dark, and the animation is upsetting. Like the way that it's drawn, everything about it just makes you go, ugh. And I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know why I like it. But yeah, we're enjoying the hell out of it.
Yeah.
And I'm not recommending it to anybody.
Totally. I think it's important. We both talked about like dark shows. I think it's important every now and then to just revisit the deeper, more demented aspects of humanity. And I don't like to stay there that long. There are shows, and I've talked about this before, where if I linger too long, it's almost like, am I sad or did I eat cheese? Am I insane? Should I die, or is it what I'm watching? Because like Rectify was a little bit like that. Fascinating, and humanity that I wasn't aware of, and
Ozark.
Californication.
I got burned out on Ozark. You actually watched the third season. I still haven't, because the first and second season were so hard.
But you watched it the whole way through, though, right? I took breaks of a year in between each season.
Yeah. No, I don't remember. I think I might have watched the first season before the second one was out. I don't remember. But this is a comedy, and it's so comedy. I don't know. A lot of people probably wouldn't find it funny, but it's like to make light of the stuff that it does is I don't know. I find it hilarious.
Yeah.
There's a lot of parts where you're just like, I can't believe you're doing this.
Have you seen Weeds?
No, well, I might have seen an episode or two, because I think somebody around me was watching it at one point.
Okay.
But I never.
What's the other one I was thinking?
Breaking Bad.
Shameless.
Yeah. That's the William H. Macy one, right?
Right.
Yeah. That one's tough. You have to find a balance between having characters that are like, you can't have a show where everyone is hateable equally. Like, they have to have some redeeming qualities. Like Arrested Development was there were so many characters that you hated and loved to hate, but then they had redeeming moments and things like that.
Right.
Rick and Morty sometimes toes that line for people where there's nobody in it to root for. So I don't know. I still like it.
That's awesome. Hey, I watched. I don't know if I've talked about. Have I talked about Palmer?
Plumber? No.
Palmer.
No.
So Justin Timberlake is in a movie called Palmer, where he is he's released from prison. He's on probation. He's living with his grandmother, and his grandmother's been taking care of this kid whose mother lives on her land. So like, it's got a RV on the property. And the kid is a young boy who loves princesses and dressing up in princess stuff. And so the character that Justin Timberlake plays ends up taking care of this kid. So there's a lot of gender stuff, a lot of society stuff, and it's a heartwarming story.
Wow, that sounds awesome.
Two humans bonding and improving their lives together. And
That
gosh,
sounds awesome.
Watching it was fascinating for my own childhood gender stuff. It's not that I wasn't without support when I was younger. It's just that hearing the bullies yell out that you're supposed to behave and be different or like different stuff. And this kid is phenomenally congruent. And that was not my own experience.
Yeah.
I was feistily, I would like yell and fight for myself, but not in a like, it's just me. There's just a very interesting difference of who that kid was. And I just found it fascinating. It was interesting to recognize that tension in my own body and the sadness inside of just wishing that I'd had more sense of course, I'm in the world and I get to be.
Here's a weird question.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a myth? And what I mean by that is, do you think kids like that, with that degree of congruency, maybe they exist, but do you think it may be extremely rare, and that by far the vast majority is people at that age experiencing what you experienced, which is, I don't fucking know. Like, I'm so confused and overwhelmed and influenced in so many different directions. And like that the opposite of congruency is being pulled in multiple directions. And I think most adults are that way, first of all.
Sure.
But when you're a kid at that age, like, it's got to be so hard to be like, I wonder if painting the picture of someone like that, if every kid that watches it is going to be like, well, I'm not that clear and confident and congruent.
Yeah, I don't know. So I hear the theory. I've not spent a lot of time around children. That is not my path. So the idea that, in the work that we do with adult humans and healing what they went through as kids, because it's still influencing their lives now, I am aware that there are kids that just come out with their personalities. They have, before they're influenced by other people, they reach for stuff, they behave a particular way. They already have a personality that's inherent, and whether they morph and shift it over time, that's so I have the belief that probably some children come out knowing who they are, and then just, why doesn't it, And I think that it's probably rare, yes, because of the dependence that we have on the people around us and helping us to know who we are. Now, my confidence about who I was a little bit in more of a defiance to everybody around me telling me I should be different.
Right.
And it turned into like a tough girl, like, well, then fuck you then.
Yeah.
I'm just going to play with it. And almost like grabbing onto boy world even more.
Right.
Because everybody was telling me I shouldn't, and all of it just seemed way more fun than whatever girl world was going to be, according to the society I was born into in the 80s, gender's a super fascinating thing.
Yeah. I mean, I just think my belief is people should figure out who and what you want to be and be that. And as long as you're not hurting other people, that's what you should do. And I think that in my experience, I think most people, it takes a lot of introspection and work to reach the level of congruency you're describing in that kid in the movie. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if it is intimidating for people sometimes to look at that and be like, I'm nowhere near that level of clear and congruent about what I am and who I am.
Yeah.
But then to go, it takes, for most humans, it takes a lot of work to get to that level of congruency. You have to go through your insecurities and the judgments and crap that have been put in there by other people.
Well, if you think about it, the way in which imprinting and becoming a person, like we did the episodes where we talked about what TVs and movies were made of, right?
Right.
We aren't ourselves. We're a collage What's the other thing where you break the stuff and then you make a thing? The tables that have broken pieces of ceramic or whatever.
I don't know what it's
mosaic.
Called. Yeah, that's
collages and mosaic of other people who we've modeled. So the fact that we don't feel like ourselves should be obvious because we're soup. We're stew made up of a whole bunch of other things. And then like pulling apart the stuff that doesn't work for who the things that we want and who we would like to be.
Yeah.
Makes kind of sense to me. But yeah, that was a beautiful movie. I saw
that sounds
quite a bit.
Awesome. That sounds awesome. And it makes me happy that I like Justin Timberlake continues to be like, God damn it, Justin. Like I keep seeing him do stuff. Like even he was in this little movie with nope. She was also in Black Swan with Natalie Portman, but not Natalie Portman. She was in Mila Kunis.
Yes,
that was it. Good job.
Is it the friendship sex movie?
Yeah, it was like Friends with Benefits or something like that. And it was right around the same time that Natalie Portman was in another movie called No Strings Attached with Ashton Kutcher, and it had the same basic premise. The one with Natalie Portman was garbage, and the one with Justin Timberlake and Mila Kunis was so sweet and hilarious and heartfelt. And I remember watching it and being like, wow, Justin has like range. And he was in Black Snake Moan. Have you seen that? Mm-hmm. And he played like a dude with PTSD, and he was awesome in that role. Yeah, I'm just continually impressed with that dude. And this makes me even more happy with him.
Yeah, it's pretty great. It's very interesting because he does play a more masculine seeming character. So the two reconciling how to get along is a very fun watch. It's not without its challenges, certainly, because that makes it a more valid movie, really.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's really awesome. I have several people in mind that I'm going to recommend to go watch that movie. I'm going to go watch it too, but I'm already like, oh yeah, that one's going to become a tool.
Nice. Yeah. Well, it's not so overtly. No one's decided they're trans. Not that that's a problem. I'm just saying that it's not. I've been complaining most of this year about heavy-handed movies that are just really overtly moralizing, and this isn't that. This is
preachy.
Yeah,
makes it so that the beautiful message you're trying to get across is unpalatable, and it takes an incredible amount of skill to get your message across in a way that makes it seem like the story needs this. Mm-hmm. I've heard the same thing said about sex scenes, that like when the story needs it, it's fine, but if it isn't, it's gratuitous, and preachy feels gratuitous.
Yeah,
you have to construct the story in a way where the lesson is present and unavoidable, and that makes it invisible. That makes it so that you swallow the pill in the peanut butter. That's how you give it to dogs.
Yes.
I don't actually take pills in peanut butter. I just
I love it. I'm just trying to like stretch that metaphor out to movie watching. Yeah. Is that a mini chapter in our ECP book? How to swallow the pill in the peanut butter?
Yeah. Yes.
Write
Definitely.
it down. Do you want to talk about the movie, or do you have another thing to say?
No. Let's talk about the movie.
Okay, great.
Last week we were supposed to talk about 2 movies, but we didn't because we talked about a lot of other stuff, and we talked about the Lion movie. But the second movie we were supposed to talk about is Bill and Ted's, what is it? What's Final Journey? Final Destination? What is it?
I had a joke about this beforehand. They, Bill and Ted fuck the monkey, but that's not what it is. No, they face the music. Bill and Ted face the music.
That's right. Okay. So Bill and Ted, third movie in the Bill and Ted trilogy after 25, 30 years or something coming back.
Gosh.
So yeah, why don't you go first? What were your overall thoughts?
So I watched it many months back, and then I had to reread the synopsis or the plot analysis so that I was like, okay, yeah, I remember this movie. So I didn't rewatch the first two ahead of watching it. And I think that I'm going to go back and watch all three together, because much like Men in Black being a massively healing journey unexpectedly, this trilogy, first of all, of the movies that made me, this is in there. Like, I played Bill and Ted with my neighbor next door. I have visceral movies of Bill and Ted, Ghostbusters, Police Academy, Stand By Me. Like, these movies were part of what I did with my days as play. And so even before watching the movie, the glee of both of those actors coming back to revisit this. And Keanu Reeves had spent so much of his career attempting to distance himself from this character.
Totally.
And to give us the glorious return and then to drop so fully in it. Oh my freaking gosh. So they are old now. They have kids. The whole premise of the Bill and Ted trilogy is that these two wannabe musicians are visited by Rufus, from this dude from the future who has to get them through high school because they are going to write a song that just saves humanity or something like that, saves the world or something like that. And so that's the premise of the original movie. And they're supposed to pass high school. And so they go back in time. So this is the first movie. They go back in time and they grab a bunch of people from history and to try to learn the shit that they need to learn or whatever. So, and then they play this epic concert in the end. And now this movie is so important in my life that even in my client work, I literally do specific like mental visualizations that are based on Bill and Ted. The idea at the end of the first movie, they're like, oh my God, we forgot to remember to learn to play our guitars for this just big epic concert they have to play at the end there. And so they're like, oh, dude, we should have our future selves come back and then teach us the guitar. And then we would know how to play right now. And like, yeah, excellent. And then they're like, right? And they can suddenly play. I do that technique with my clients. It's like, well, you didn't know that in your past, but now you know that you would need to know it. So let's fly back and teach your past you these values and install these beliefs and then notice how it changes your life. And it's like, well, you don't know how to solve this problem, but future you has figured it out. So why don't we just fly out there into the future?
Totally.
Visit your future self and figure it out.
Who knew Bill and Ted was a documentary?
On timeline therapy. So I don't actually remember the plot of the second movie.
It's very similar to the first one.
Well, they meet death.
Yeah, they end
Grim
up
Reaper.
in a battle of games with death, who is amazing. I love that actor so much.
Yeah. Also, Station.
Yeah.
I don't know why I know
it got
that.
It got weird. So I love the first one. The first one is so solid, and it sort of breaks up at the end, which is kind of traditional in these movies.
Yeah.
The second one, what I appreciated about the second one is they didn't try to do exactly the same thing. They took it much further into absurd.
Right.
And it's a lot of people don't like it for that reasons, but it's kind of like Gremlins and Gremlins 2 for me, where Gremlins 2 is like, well, okay, I'll do a sequel, but it's not going to be a rehash of the first one.
Right.
So then we get to the new one 25 years later or whatever.
So 25 years later, they still haven't written this song. And the Wild Stallions band had an okay ride, but they're not doing well. And they married the princesses from the first movie. How fun is that? They have kids, but their relationships are also like there's talk of potentially ending, like divorce is potentially on the line, and their kids are like, oh no, their parents are gonna get divorced. That's awful. And so they're trying to help. And so do they get visited? I don't know if they get visited by somebody who says, oh my God, you need to write this gosh darn song or figure it out because the world is breaking apart.
Oh, I keep wanting to say
Rufus's daughter,
Kristen Bell, but it's not. She's from I know the actress. I love her so much. She's in Bob's Burgers, and I can't remember her name. She's got a really unique voice. She's a really funny comedian. Anyway, she's the one who comes back. She plays
Kristen Shaw.
Kristen Shaw. Yeah, she's hilarious.
Yeah, she's like, oh my gosh, you screwed up and you haven't written this song and we need it.
Mm-hmm.
Or they suddenly have just a day to write the song.
Right.
Otherwise.
Yeah. Interesting how there's a ticking clock when you have time travel, but it's fine.
Yeah. So apparently they do the inside outsourcing again. And it's like, well, maybe our future selves have figured out how to write this, and we should go visit them and get them to give us the song so that we can have it now and release it so that we can save the world. And in the meantime, the daughters are like, hey, maybe they need a band. They don't have a band. How are we going to do this? So they're like, well, we should help them. And I think the princesses go on an adventure.
There was a little bit of a background story going on with them too. Yeah.
Everybody's time traveling. It's pretty great.
So what did you think?
I sobbed and shivered on my couch so much during this movie. The level of DNA repair that happened while I watched this to make my life make sense on a deep and cellular level was so there's generational healing in there, recognizing that, like, what is your legacy?
Yeah,
is in this story, that maybe the dreams that you have for yourself aren't meant to be satisfied by you. And what does that mean to foster change that, like, you're a part of? I stupid love this movie. It does all of the things it needs to do as far as like revisiting some of the old things from the first movie. I can't sentences or words about it very well.
Loved how it seemed to stay silly, but also grow up.
Yeah.
In a similar way that the actors did. That like the themes of this are much deeper and more interesting than the other ones. And I did not expect that. I think that where they go with like as soon as they started hinting that this is going to be about them sort of saving their relationship, as well as saving all of time and space with their song, I was just like, oh my God, because they're so sincere. That's one of the things about the characters that's so awesome, is they're absolutely and utterly without guile, right? That's like, they're completely sincere. And when you have that kind of sincerity and they're just like, oh, our wives are going to leave us. And it's so like, we got to go save our marriages. It's so beautiful and precious. I feel like Keanu Reeves was fine. He did perfectly adequately. I felt like, is it Alex Winter? Is that his name?
Yes.
Okay. I felt like he was better as his character now than he was before. He's become a better actor, not having done any acting since then. He was so good, and there were like real moments of emotion and stuff with these characters. So
I loved when physics showed up too. Like the time travel, math, and physics, and figuring out what you were having to do now that the world is breaking apart. Kid Cudi showing up with like the drops of hints of different philosophies. Well, if you're operating from this, and that was awesome.
There was thematically all the right callbacks to the other show or to the other movies. I I liked all the time travel stuff was really fun. I love their daughters. Those two actresses were so perfect. Like, talk about just completely committed to going there. Like, it's such a weird performance, and they weren't like doing Bill and Ted. They had their own slight version of it. Loved it. Love it.
It was really fun for me to actually, having played at Bill and Ted as a kid, to watch two girls play. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, we get two girls going through time travel. What? Yes. Yeah. And I love the actress who, Bridget Lundy Payne. I'm reading off the side here. She is in Atypical, and she's great in that too.
Someone watching with me mentioned that. I haven't seen Atypical, but I would say that it has an incredible setup and opening, and the first 2/3 of the movie are amazing, and I love it. And the last third of the movie, if it was good, it wouldn't be a Bill and Ted movie. That's how I'll put it.
So true.
If the end of the movie didn't fall the fuck apart, it wouldn't be a Bill and Ted movie, because the other two are just like, whatever, now we're on stage and it's all happy. I don't know. Shut up.
It's totally plausible. This is what would happen. Of course, this is what's going on.
And I didn't care at all. Even the jokes, like even some of the jokes running long near the end of the movie, like with the robot character named Dennis, some of that stuff. I'm like, that's exactly what they did in the other movies. So if you consider it was all intentional, then I think the movie is absolutely perfect.
Yeah. And even who they choose in the band is incredibly fascinating.
Yeah.
I took a rock and roll history class, and one of the assignments was to write a paper. We were supposed to put together a super group, and it reminded me of that, like of the people that we studied, like put together a super group, make a band from anyone in history. And I was just like, oh my God, that's every musician geek's like dream. Who would I gather?
The delight of the different characters getting to interact with each other. There was just enough of that where you got to see like Mozart finding out about this flute player who I hadn't heard of, but I'm assuming is some legendary character. And then like each one being impressed with the shoulders, that getting to meet the shoulders they stood on. Yeah. That was awesome.
Plus you've got this like Death as the epic bass player who was shunned. And so you get to heal every band's disagreement of every band you've ever known who's ever existed, who've broken up and lost specific vital members, right?
Yep, getting the band back together. That's a whole genre right there.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
I thought the therapy scenes were absolutely hilarious when they're showing up and it's the four of them and they're like, no, what's weird?
Everybody's in therapy together. It's like, we have our own relationship. Oh gosh, so good. Yeah, no, I cried big and a lot. It's the same trigger of the moment in a movie, like the moment music is happening in anything, I'm usually sobbing. It's like it's the same musical trigger that whatever song that they're going to the song they're going to play at the end, I am going to just choke on my own tears, sobbing so heavily.
It was so much better than I thought it was going to be. That's and I thought it was going to be fine, but I was like, oh wow, I heard from people that this was pretty good. But then by the time I got to the end, I kind of felt like I knew why people said it was pretty good. But the opening is so good. Like the first half of the movie, the setup of everything is so good. Payoff is a little lacking. But again, it wouldn't be a Bill and Ted movie if the end didn't fall completely apart.
Yeah. I'm just thrilled that we're in so a bunch of people are kind of annoyed at like bringing back old movies or this. I'm just at the right age, though, that a bunch of things that I watched are either getting made again or we get to revisit this. I mean, I even watched the Deadwood movie which has been out a couple few years, and that there was time in between and we get to revisit these crazy characters. I just feels stupid fun that we're at a point where there's so many distribution companies that we can get shows back. You talked about Arrested Development.
Yeah.
That Arrested Development could come back. There's what are like Will and Grace coming back.
The Expanse was a big one for me that got canceled one place and got picked up another place and then had an amazing new season.
Yeah.
So you mentioned musicals. One of the movies that I recently got my hands on, I told my girlfriend that we have to watch together because she's never seen it. Have you ever heard of a movie called Seven Brides for Seven Brothers?
No, but I've heard the title.
Yeah, it's a famous play or a musical, like stage musical. And it's so offensive.
Okay.
Like it's about these kind of hillbilly boys where there's seven brothers who all live on their own. I don't think their parents are around anymore. And they decide to go in town and find wives. And then they end up basically kidnapping these women. And then an avalanche traps them all up on this farm. And then the oldest woman, the one that the oldest son, brother was into, is like, no, you can't kidnap women. And then they make them all go sleep in the barn. And then it's about them like navigating this. It's so funny. And I can't wait to watch it again. I think it does not stand the test of time, but it is definitely one of those like, wow, this is not how people think anymore. So
see, I always wonder when there are these like odd ideas for musicals. I always wonder if it's the state that like someone has an idea for a story and then they realize it has to be a musical.
It's ridiculous if it doesn't have music. Yeah.
Or if there are just people who like, I am a person who writes musicals and then they're like searching for fantastic stories. I don't know. Do you have any idea how this one was made? Because
I think it might actually be a reference to a Greek story. And I think they referenced the Greek story in the play, if memory serves. It was a long time ago. I watched this when I was a kid.
Right.
But I do recall there's some really good music in it. And that's always the weird thing, that it's like, I don't know, in the middle of this weird story, there's this great song. And often the great songs, this is probably not a great musical if this is the case, but the great songs you can almost pull right out of it, and it doesn't have anything to do with it. Stands alone.
Totally.
Yeah. There's a few songs I remember from it.
Yeah.
A couple of funny ones. There's a big barn raising scene that I recall in it. I don't know. I'm excited. I want to watch it again.
Cool. It's just reminding me that I have like no memory of the ending, like the ending song of this Bill and Ted movie. Speaking of like musicals, things like I remember it being wonderful, but then I can't sing it to you or hum it or even.
No, it was pretty forgettable. That's for sure. That's always a tough thing when you're like, you're going to write a movie about a song that's going to change the universe. And then you have to write a song that is believable in that. So I get that what they did, they kind of twisted that a little bit, spoilers, by making it about the idea of everybody doing something all together is what did it. And that's a nice notion that felt philosophically interesting. And it isn't really about the song. It doesn't matter what the song is. It's just that fact that everybody's doing something together. That's cool.
I do have the recollection that everybody gets to shine in the song in a way that you're like craving, you know. I do recall that. I remembered like throwing up devil horns and leaping off my couch a bunch of times, wanting to like throw my pillows in glee. I sometimes respond pretty big.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know that Bill and Ted was that important to you. So now I'm even more excited that we finally got around to this, because I've been meaning to watch it. I mean, I liked those movies, but they weren't I actually don't think I saw them until I was an adult. Now that I think about it,
Well,
I didn't see them when I was a kid because they were worldly movies.
if we get adventurous, so there's Man Who Knew Too Little.
Yes.
But then there's also Coming to America 2.
Yeah. What did you think? Worth
I
watching?
haven't seen it yet.
Oh.
I was just like, maybe is it worth talking about?
I mean, let's put it on the list. Because I actually really want to watch that Justin Timberlake one that you mentioned. And I don't have a ton of time. I don't want to commit to one and then have you be like, I watched it. And I'm like, I didn't watch it. I'm sorry.
So you haven't seen it or you have?
No, I have not.
Okay. So I'm going to watch Man Who Knew Too Little. And you can watch, we talk about it because that's what you're excited about. We didn't talk about Push, Pinch, Switch.
Oh, did you watch it?
I did. Was it Push?
Push.
Yes, I did. I could probably collect some things to say about it, but not that much.
Let's not. Yeah. Let's save it for next time. Because I might be able to throw out a couple of things. I actually forgot to write notes on that one because I did have some specific insight aha moments. Yeah. But they were pretty random, so I don't think I'll be able to remember them. So that's why I have to write these things down. Anyway, yeah. Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah.
So that was fun.
I enjoyed it. We were here together. This thing happened. Mm-hmm. I'm coming up with great ideas about how the heck we can edit these and put them in the world, and how we can shoot these so that we don't have to edit them to put them out in the world. I'm very excited.
Oh, I like it. All right. Well, let's talk more. So,
all righty.
TV Deeply, everybody.
All right. Take care.
Bye.